My name is Guillaume. I'm here today with you for the Thursday Tax Tips with Beta Virtual Assistants. So I welcome everyone to that is here today. I would like to just make sure everything is working before I get started because obviously the day that I didn't check is the day that there was no sound or no video. So let me see if it works quickly. Uh, Looks like the sound is good. All right, so let's get started. So the topic of today is what is the most important thing you need to get right for your crypto taxes. So there's actually one thing that we feel is really important about getting your tax right, and it's the cost basis. So what is the cost basis? Is that it's really how much you paid for your assets. And so that means like whatever you paid is like the cost basis, and whatever you got or when you sold is proceeds, or there's different words for this. But the difference between how much you sold for and how much you paid for is really the gain, and that or the loss in some cases. And so that's what you need to report. So that might seems pretty obvious, but especially with crypto. I mean, there's another thing that's quite important, especially if you're US on your US tax reports, is now there's a new question right at the beginning about if you earn or got an income or any kind of crypto income or crypto, like did you sell any crypto? So you need to make sure you answer that properly to make sure you don't get into any trouble in the future. But so going back to cost basis, so that seems pretty obvious. If you're just buying, let's say if you just make one transaction, you buy whatever one Bitcoin, and a few months later you sell one Bitcoin on the same exchange, then you would think that's pretty simple. You just check how much you paid for and how much you sold for, and that's it. However, that gets quickly more complicated than that. So that's why people say, "Oh, I don't need any help. I just even have a free tax software or some kind of report with my exchange, and they just do that for me, or they just send me a report." And so that works in very simple case. But for example, cost basis can also include the fees that you paid at the or other like costs that might be charged to you when you bought the asset. So it could be the actual amount you paid for plus the fees. So also you need to consider that. But let's say you bought crypto on you bought I don't know, part of a Bitcoin on one exchange, and maybe you bought some other partial Bitcoin on some other exchange. You bought some maybe on a DeFi wallet or cold wallet. Maybe you have a DCA program where you invest regularly in Bitcoin. And then for some reason, some of the exchange, they either close or they, like what's happening recently, they don't want to allow like customer, let's say from the US or from Canada, and then you end up transferring your assets somewhere else. And then for some reason, you know that it's not as safe to keep it on a centralized exchange. You move them maybe to your decentralized software wallet or browser wallet, and then even maybe you move them you decide to buy a cold wallet, and you move some to a wallet because you want to hold for the long term. And then eventually, let's say you bought a total of one Bitcoin over the course of a few weeks or months or years even, and then you sell one Bitcoin. But what if you maybe made 5, 10, 20 purchase to accumulate that Bitcoin in different places, and then you've been transferring things back and forth. So you sell it now for, let's say, 30,000 US dollar, but how much did you pay for it? Now it's not so obvious. So you would have to figure out all the purchase you made over time and how much you paid at each point in time. So that's why the software comes in. So it will let you basically will try to trace to find the history of all your transaction and find a match. And what it does is actually free software won't really do that. They will just say, okay, you sold one Bitcoin and I have no idea how much you paid for that Bitcoin. So it might say, okay, you just made a gain of $30,000. So that's really a huge difference. And what even if you paid maybe 40, 50,000 on average for that Bitcoin because you bought last year or whatever at the peak and now it went down. Now it's back up again, but maybe you even paid more than what you sold for. So you would have even a loss, not a gain in this case. So you need to make sure that you can track this. The other instance where you need to know the cost basis, if you earn any kind of reward or bonus or anything and you receive some crypto, well, you might need to report that as income at the time that you got that crypto, but you might also then, the moment you got possession of it, then that becomes your cost basis. So if you sell it in the future, then you only report the gain between what you sold for and the value at the point of time that you got it. And then if you purchase like let's say a house, then you probably know how much you paid for it, like officially, and then how much you sold for it a few years later or something. But what about Bitcoin or some other crypto? Of course, the market fluctuates every second, every minute, and then even it's open 24 hours a day, so you can even get the opening price or ending price or average price for that day because it never stops, never closes. So the software will basically go and get the value for that transaction at that moment in time. So you will get, anytime that you will get the value if it's a good software like the one we recommend, like Contracting. But then and then because of course, what if the value went up that day or whatever? So obviously on the blockchain, this information is there for the price history and it's able to get it. And so that's why it gets more complicated a little bit than standard like stock market transaction, where normally they just report to you each transaction, and usually they're all in the same brokerage account, and you can just get your initial price. So sometimes you might have made multiple purchase, but you have the cost basis for each purchase, and when you sell it, or so if you have a good software, you're able to retrieve this information. But again, just to make sure that you're only reporting the difference between what you paid and what you sold for. But like I was saying earlier, the problem is often this gets lost because we have a lot of clients that have different accounts, different wallets, and they move things around and they buy some, then they buy some more, then they maybe sell some, then they buy more. So it gets really complicated very quickly. So the software that we use, what it first is, it just will report to you all the details of every transaction, and it will let you know if it didn't find any cost basis for any transaction. So at least you're not reporting like incorrect information. So you can try to track this down, figure that out. But what it does as well is really it tries to match any withdrawals and deposits in different places together so that it can track the history of your Bitcoin, for example. So the way it does that is it will look for similar transaction with exact amount or close enough amount of coins, and then even same day. Obviously, timestamps are different from one exchange to another, so you might move it somewhere else, and it might be a few minutes difference, a few hours even sometimes, even though it was pretty much took place like right away. They don't have same time zone or whatever. So it has a range of time that it's looking for, and then also looking for a value. And again, because, for example, the fees. So what might happen is you maybe transferred zero point 0.1 Bitcoin, but you actually got 0.0995 or whatever because there was a fee. So sometimes the fee is included in that transaction. Sometimes it's a separate transaction. So it will try to do the best it can to match everything. And it does a pretty good job. But what's most important is there's some report you can look at that will tell you exactly what transaction were matched, which one were not matched. And so you have to look at those, and then you can make some manual fixes or automated fixes so that you kind of match everything together, so that then basically from the beginning of your purchases all the way to when you sold it, then everything has been accounted for. And so that will make sure that if you sold a full Bitcoin, but you made 20 purchases to accumulate that one, all of those purchases have the actual cost basis of each of them. And so now you have the full amount that you paid for, and then the difference is really what you're going to report. So that is really important. And we've tested different software that didn't do that very well. And also people, sometimes they just, they tell you, this software will just in 20 minutes create my tax report. But if you look very closely, you might find out that it made a lot of mistakes, or it just didn't know what to do in certain cases, but it just ignored those errors. So you have to really dig in to find out what's going on. So that's why we like software that will give you all the information, all the reports, and then you can really make sure everything has been corrected and fixed. So that's pretty much what it is concerning cost basis, and that's where that's where crypto is a bit difficult to report and reconcile because of those things. And so because every places they give you different reports. But again, when you send something out or when you receive something, they have no idea where they come from. So they just assume you got it for free, or when you send it, same thing. They just assume you sold it, even though maybe you didn't sell it yet. So in that case, if you're just, of course, converting from one coin to another or one token to another, then you need to report that. Or if you're converting back from crypto to fiat. And that's one misconception is you have to report any of those. But if you're just transferring that coin to another place, you don't need to report that. You're still owe that token. And so until you convert it later or sell it, you're just transferring it away. So that's a different thing. And in that case, you won't need to report that transaction yet. So please make sure that you know about this and let us know if you have any questions. So we're here Tuesdays and Thursday for crypto tax tips. And so if you want to find out more, we have crypto courses that we sell for pretty cheap, but even we like to give it away to some of our friends. So if you're interested, like intro courses to crypto taxes, we have the workshop replay that usually we put the link below that you can watch and find out more about crypto taxes and service we offer. Obviously, then if you don't know yet, we have services like Done For You and do-it-yourself services. And of course, sometimes we also try to make sure you're investing safely. So we have another group and blog about safer crypto investing. If you want to just find out more about different things happening on the market. And of course, we can see you also on Saturday where it's more about strategy and investing ideas. So we're glad if you're watching this live or in the replay. I'm glad that you came here, and feel free to share any question for future Facebook Lives. And I'll see you soon. Thank you very much.